I think a story is a good place to start. The story I'm going to tell you is the story of Joseph. Great guy. There's this young boy that doesn't get along with any of his brothers. And the reason why he doesn't get along with his brothers is because he is gifted in a way that they don't really appreciate. And that's not a problem. Most people in this world are gifted in ways that we don't appreciate. That's why we often don't get along or don't like people, because we don't appreciate how great they are. We don't appreciate what an asset they are to society. We don't appreciate that without them, the whole universe would cease to exist. If we looked at people like that, if we looked at everyone as a gift, if we looked at everyone as a treasure, if we looked at everyone as being God's gift to humanity, we wouldn't hate. So Joseph is this gifted boy. He has very intricate dreams that seem to be able to tell the future. He also gets along really well with his father. And the brothers don't really like that there's a perceived favoritism, that there's a sense of specialness about him that they don't seem to find within themselves. And early in their life, they make a decision to kill him. And last minute, they decide not to kill him. They decide to throw him in a pit and work out what to do. And then they actually end up selling him to a caravan of Arab people dealers. Nowadays, they'd be called people smugglers, but back then they were just dealers, slave dealers. They take him down to Egypt. And he gets sold. And he gets sold to a very, very wealthy, powerful individual whose name is Potiphar. Works out well. Until Potiphar's wife, who takes a liking to dear Joseph, makes a number of advances which eventually are so provocative that they culminate in an advance that will either result in her getting what she wants or some sort of tabloid feast. Because the wife of Potiphar is a very well-known socialite. Her husband is one of the government members in Pharaoh's cabinet. And Joseph is well known. Over the years, he developed a reputation for being an excellent business person. Over the years, he developed a reputation of being an extremely handsome person. And so this is kind of the sort of place that the paparazzi like to hang out. You know, you've got all the makings of a headline story here. And she makes an advance, and Joseph refuses her. How that refusal takes place, learn the Torah. You get all the different commentaries, whether he actually wanted to be with her and then last minute pulled out, or whether he didn't want to be with her at all and she attempted to rape him, or who knows what. You get all the variations, but whatever it is, they didn't end up hooking up. But what does happen is we've got a naked man running through the streets and a woman caught holding his clothing. And when the police, so to speak, want to know what's going on, we've got the slave versus the master of the house's wife. And in such a situation, there's only one person that gets believed, the master of the house's wife. And so they ask her, what happened? And she says, he tried to rape me, but I screamed so loud that he started fleeing, and I tried to hold him back so that you would catch him. I've got his coat in my hand, but he ran. And Joseph ends up in prison. Sad case. While he's in prison, he meets two fascinating prisoners. One of them used to be a butler, and one of them used to be a baker in the royal house. And they have dreams. And they come to him in prison and they say, we hear you're a great, wise man. Can you interpret the dream? And so he interprets their dreams. And he says, you are going to be executed and you are going to go free. And then he says, by the way, when you go free, can you please remember me and mention my name to Pharaoh? Indeed, one of them ends up being executed and the other one goes free. When he goes free, he forgets Joseph. And there's a punishment here. The commentaries say Joseph was punished for putting his faith in a person and not in God. And the punishment was that the person he put his faith in forgot about him for a few years, until Pharaoh starts having some nasty dreams. And the butler says, hey, this is so odd, but when I was in prison, there was a really smart bloke that was able to interpret dreams and was able to predict from the dreams what would happen. You should go have a chat with him. So Pharaoh summons Joseph. And Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams, and Pharaoh says, wise man, you will become my royal vizier. You will take control of the operation of Egypt. Some years pass. His brothers have all developed their own kingdom in the land of Canaan. And there's a famine. And the only place there is enough food, despite the famine, is Egypt, thanks to Joseph's wisdom as inspired from Pharaoh's dreams. And the brothers all come, and there's this whole rigmarole where he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And eventually he has them thrown in prison and taken out of prison and in prison and out of prison. And he just wants to know, have they regretted the fact that they sold their brother into slavery, or as far as they're concerned, their brother that eventually must have died. And he hears them speaking words of regret, and he realizes that he can find it in his heart not only to forgive them, but to treat them with the utmost respect that a brother should treat his brothers. And he reveals himself to them, and he says, behold, I'm Joseph, is our father still alive? Who's this Joseph? He's royal vizier of Egypt, the most powerful empire in the day. And where has he got his brothers? In the palm of his hand. He could kill them. He could enslave them. He could send them packing back to Canaan without any food. And what do they say? They say, Joseph, please forgive us. Please don't be angry with us. And they repeat this conversation after their father dies. They actually are nervous again because they're scared after their father died that now Joseph has no guilt. And Joseph says to them, what do you get? What's your concern? I don't get what your issue is. Was it you that caused all this to happen? You didn't cause this to happen. Hashem caused this to happen. Hashem was the cause of me being sold into slavery. Hashem was the cause of me becoming the royal vizier. And the story goes on. If you want more, read the Bible. So, we've got a story. We've got a story of ups and downs. Now, we know full well that the Torah does not tell us stories because it's important that we get our history right. We know that the Torah tells us stories because there's a lot to be learned in this story. And I need to break this story down tonight in order for us to be able to live happily ever after in 2015. Joseph says, was it you that did this? As if they're even crazy for thinking that they are responsible for anything that has happened. And Joseph says, I had nothing to do with you. Even though they think they were the ones that sold him into slavery. Indeed they were. And it was a direct result of him being sold into slavery and a whole lot of chain reaction events that took place that he becomes the royal vizier of Egypt. Now, if you were Joseph in prison, you'd say life sucks. If you were Joseph in the pit, you'd say life sucks. If you were Joseph, head of Potiphar's home, you've got everything. You've got swimming pools, you've got money, you've got respect. You're the number 2 to the number 1, number 2 man. That's a good job to have. He would have felt great. When he's in prison, he would have felt lousy. When he became royal vizier, he would have felt great. So, you know, he's got these ups and downs. We'd say, oh yes, the story of Joseph is the story of our life. We all have ups and we all have downs, and every bad thing leads to a good thing, and every good thing leads to a bad thing. And if it's not good, what's the great cliche? If it's not, all's well ends well. So if it hasn't ended well, it must mean you're not at the end. I love this stuff. I love it. It really comforts someone in a time of pain. Although it's true. But if you would have gone and told Joseph when he was in prison, don't worry, it's not the end, he probably would have slapped you in the face as well. Why do I say that? Because he asked the butler, please remember me. In that moment, he had no faith, which means it's very hard to believe such a thing. And because we're talking about belief and trust in Hashem, that's what we want to talk about tonight. Belief in Hashem is the belief that everything that exists is a result of the infinite consciousness and creator. And the trust is that not only is everything responsible, is a result of Hashem, and is a part of Hashem, but rather Hashem is in every moment, wanting and willing every moment to exist. Which means Hashem, as Joseph said, wanted Joseph sold as a slave, wanted Joseph to be the head of Potiphar, wanted Joseph to go through prison, and wanted Joseph to become the royal vizier of Egypt. And the story goes on until you get to 2015. There's an interesting article, an interesting piece in the Talmud that says that the Egyptians complained to God and said, why punish us for what we did to the Jews? We know that the Jews were enslaved in Egypt in heavy slavery for just over 80 years. We know that they were living as a subculture within Egypt for 210 years. So this period of 80 years of enslavement, male children were killed. At one point, all children were killed. Killed means they were thrown into the Nile or just stabbed. We know that slavery meant working on meaningless projects just to try to control the population. Slavery meant working on meaningful projects for no pay and very little food, just enough to be able to keep them working. So that's slavery, as in no rights, not no basic human rights, no rights, no treatment as a human full stop. It wasn't that they didn't have a right to vote. They didn't have much of a right to live. And if they did dare live, well then they are serfs to the empire. And so the Egyptians say, okay, God, just before you really get upset, and there was the whole 10 plague thing, because Egypt was punished for what it had done, there's a fair argument. And the Egyptians say, you, Hashem, promised to Abraham that the Jews, that his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren would be slaves. That was the promise. The promise that Hashem made to Abraham. I know, not much of a promise, but it was a promise. Because with that promise also came that I won't forget them and I'll take them out of Egypt. So the Egyptians said, we were just doing your bidding. You promised Abraham that they would be slaves. We kept your promise for you. Why are you getting bragus with us? Why are you getting upset with us? We delivered on what you promised some hundreds of years prior. It's a good taina. It's a good argument by the Egyptians. Because this was always meant to happen. So why did they get punished? To which the response that the Talmud gives is, while Hashem said that the great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, the great-great-great-grandchildren of Abraham would be enslaved, he never gave the Egyptians the job to enslave them. They were never hired to do the job. So yes, they were enslaved, but no one ever hired the Egyptians to do the job. Now this is a very important story, because what it does is it divides two things. It divides accountability from an occurrence. Something that happens is meant to happen. That's what comes out of this story. The Jews were always meant to be enslaved. That is what the story says. However, just because they were meant to be enslaved does not mean that the Egyptians had a right to enslave the Jews. Now, some commentaries say that what it means is that they shouldn't have enjoyed it, and some commentaries say, speak about that they enjoyed the enslavement. No. Basic understanding is, and that's all I want to go with tonight, that no one hired them to do the work of God. So let me put it to you in modern day words. Bad things happen to people, and I'm not really going to explore bad things happening to people because that's the next series. But bad things happen to people. And sometimes they happen and you just look at it and you go, wow, that's an absolute freak of nature or freak occurrence. And sometimes bad things happen because someone takes a stick and whacks someone else in the head. In the Talmud, when it talks about the laws of manslaughter, manslaughter is very, very interesting in Judaism. Genuine manslaughter means someone is killed as a result of an action that you take that you did not intend to cause harm. So you've got manslaughter where you are careless. You don't check your machinery before you use it, and then the machinery goes and causes damage. Okay, that you're going to get prosecuted for. But then there's genuine manslaughter, where you took all the precautions, you tried to do what's right to make sure it was a safe construction site or whatever it is, and as a result of something directly that you've done, you've gone and killed someone. You were using your chainsaw, and all of a sudden the chain broke and it flew through the air 50 meters and cut someone across the throat, blah, 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 and all that. That's manslaughter. That is manslaughter. Can you prosecute the person? Took all the safety precautions, tried to do their very best. Can you prosecute them? No. Because they've done nothing wrong, let's say, upon investigation. Can they be punished? Not at all. Because they've done nothing wrong. So the Talmud says, how will justice be done to this person? How will justice be done? And the Talmud says that they'll be climbing up a ladder one day, and a wind will blow, and the ladder will lose its ground, it will fall, and the person will fall off the ladder and die. It's a pretty macabre class so far tonight, isn't it? So, what is that? That's the Talmud saying that the system can organize itself. The system doesn't require our input for it to work. The system will organize itself. However, if a person gets involved in wanting to be the system will never allow that person to do something that the system doesn't permit. Which means the Jews were always going to be enslaved in Egypt. That was always going to happen. However, if the Egyptians folded their arms and said, God, not on our shift, trust me, God would have found another way for the Jews to be enslaved. The reason why the Egyptians were punished was because they didn't fold their arms, which means that the accountability is a must. The Egyptians must be held accountable for the slavery. However, to say that what happened was beyond the control of God is also a no-no. You can't say, this happened because Hashem was asleep that day. And that's what bitachon is. Emunah is that there is a system. Bitachon is that nothing happens in the system without the will of Hashem. So tonight we need to actually explore, what is Hashem? What is Hashem? I'm not talking about what is God. This isn't a theology class, nor am I going to try to smuggle any theology. I don't know if you've noticed, I never ever smuggle theology into this class. I don't know if you've detected that. I don't know if you're detecting my sarcasm either. So, thank you. It makes me feel good. I laugh at my own jokes, it's fine. What is God? Let's go with the classic transcendental Kabbala class definition of God. Maimonides' definition of God. God is the knower, God is the knowledge, and God is the known. God is the book, God is the story, and God is the scribe. All three elements. So God is both creator and creation. Consciousness and that which is known. Very, very important. Because when you realize that, it completely messes up everything that we know of God. Because we always think we're going to one day come face to face with God. You know, we'll live 80, 90, 100, 120 years. And then we're going to come face to face with God. And you know what? We're not. We're going to be just as face to face with God after we die as we were when we're alive. Because God isn't wherever it is that our soul goes. Because our soul doesn't go anywhere. Our soul just changes its dimension of understanding of reality, or the dimension in which it exists. That's all it is. If you ever want to know where are the dead people, go to the cemetery. That's where they are. They're there. Or they're here. They're here. They're on Earth. They're just not on Earth, in that they are in a space which Earth also occupies. But in their dimension, Earth doesn't exist. It doesn't have anything. It has nothing to do. If you want to know more about that, either we'll do another series on death, because those are always big sellers, or you can go online and check what videos we've got already on the topic. But what my point is that we often think of Hashem as some detached being of sorts, when in truth Hashem is not a detached being of sorts. The only detached being in the whole narrative is us. We are the only detached being in this world. We aren't sure if there's something greater, but the something greater knows that we're a part of it. Okay, so what is Hashem? I would like to describe Hashem in 3 or 4 different dimensions. It's the exact same Hashem, just different dimensions. There is a dimension of Hashem which I'm going to call Atzmos. Atzmos is essence. Essence is, I don't know, nebulous term. Can't tell you. Essence. I don't know what essence is. Atzmos is everything. It is nondescript. It is everything, but it is not everything as we know it, because that would already be a definition, so it's nothing. But it's not nothing because that's a definition, so it's the essence of all. But it's not the essence of all as in, if you mix a bit of water, you'll get stuff. The essence is. It just is. So notice I'm not going to stay on this topic because there's nothing I've got nothing to work with. Not only do I have nothing to work with, I don't have anything that I can't work with. So we're going to move on. Essence, being what it is, has a shadow or an emanation. It has a radiation of energy. It gives off. It gives off. It doesn't choose to give off. It just gives off because it is both it and it is also whatever it gives off. And whatever it gives off is infinite because it is infinite. That I can already give you a name, and that we could actually do 10 classes on. The thing that it gives off is Or Ein Sof, the infinite energy. It gives off an infinite energy. Now, Ein Sof actually means it has no end. If I tell you something has no end, what does it have? It has a beginning. If it didn't have a beginning, it would have been called it doesn't have a beginning. It doesn't have an end, which means it has a beginning. But not a beginning, because if it has no end, it's infinite. If it's infinite, it can't have a beginning. What it means is it does have something prior to it that allows it to exist. And that is Atzmos. That is the essence. The infinite energy is a radiation of that essence. And it behaves just like the essence, it's just external. Now we can work with something. We've got infinite. Infinite. It has no end. It is not this. It is not that. It is so much more. Within that, there is something called Ratzon, desire. Within the infinite, there is a desire, because the infinite means all options. All options means the desire for all options, as well as not caring for all options. So not caring for all options, there's nothing to discuss there. But what is this desire for all options? Because that's far more fascinating. The Ratzon is the desire for something else. Something else. But how do you have something else within the infinite? Something else already exists within the infinite, because the infinite is everything. So the Ratzon allows for a something else to exist and feel independent. That's something cool. Now we're talking about something called a yesh, an existence. And within existence, there is ego. Ego allows for existence to feel like it exists, as opposed to the infinite, which feels nothing because it is everything. So we've got Atzmos, which is the essence. I'm not going to discuss that. We've got Or Ein Sof, which is the emanation of the essence, which is this infinite energy. The infinite energy has both the desire to be as well as not to be. And in the desire to not be, well, that's not a desire, so let's ignore that. And the desire to be is the desire of what? Of something. How can something exist within nothing? Then nothing has to allow for something to exist. Now we've got allowance. Once you've got allowance, then you fill a void, you fill the space. And now we've got something that exists not just because it's allowed to exist, but because it has been consciously being created. Because the thing that allowed also wanted something to be in that space that it allowed it to be. And now we've got what we call creation. Creation of something new from something that was. And something that was from something that doesn't exist. Something from nothing. The nothing is what we don't relate to, so therefore it's nothing. And the something is what we have come to understand as physicality of all forms. Physicality of the earthly universe as we know it, the physical universe, the tangible universe, something as in angels, something as in the energy, something as in the energy behind energy, something as in spirituality. These are all just different forms of something. You get it? Spirituality is something. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a chain here. There's a line that can be drawn from the infinite and prior to the infinite all the way to the here and now. I could just keep walking you through the process of physical existence. So now exists because of a ratzon, because there is a desire for now to exist. And the reason why there is that desire is because the infinite wants that there should be an object, or there should be a space, and there should be a filling of that space that feels that it's independent, and then that independent being will find its path and find its way of discovering what it is a part of, and it will discover it is a part of the infinite. And that will be a pretty cool day on earth when the infinite, when the mortal, when the human being discovers that it indeed is a part of the infinite, and that everything else is a part of the infinite. Because you know what happens that day? Complete acceptance. The realization that we're all the same. The realization that not we're all the same. The realization that you don't exist and I don't exist. And a realization of what we truly are. Good day. Hopefully we'll be there. So Hashem wants it. And Hashem allows it. And Hashem therefore fills. So when we say Hashem, I'm not saying God. God! I'm talking about the energy of all, and the energy both as it doesn't relate and as it relates to us. So, we exist in that space. And Hashem wants that everything in that space will get to a certain point. And that certain point is a point of realization. And therefore everything has been constructed so as to get there. So when Joseph says, you think it was you? It wasn't you. I was always meant to become the royal vizier of Egypt. I didn't know that when I was sold into slavery, so that's why I wasn't exactly so keen about it. But now that I'm here, proves that this is where I'm meant to be. When the Talmud says the person falls off the ladder, it's because that's what's meant to happen. Now, what if someone would mug that person in the middle of the night and kill him? It was meant to be. Otherwise, God wouldn't have allowed that person to die. And the truth is, it's correct. It is meant to be. That person is meant to be mugged and killed. No, that person is meant to end their life. But nobody said that it had to be a mugger that did it. You see, Hashem creates that nothing should happen if it shouldn't happen. However, it's for the human to choose how it's going to play out. Will it go this way or will it go that way? So if I give you a very crass example, my kids, being major features of this class, being 8, 6 and 3 3/4, as was declared at the dinner table tonight. The 8-year-old usually likes going to school. The 6-year-old likes being at school but doesn't like going to school. And the 3 3/4 just does whatever he sees his older brother and sister doing. So he sometimes likes going to school and he sometimes doesn't like going to school, even though either way he doesn't even go to school. He goes to kinder. So I don't even know what the issue is, and he has no attachment issues because he throws us out of the classroom every day. So he's just doing whatever it is. Now, the one that doesn't like going to school, she's got one of two choices every single morning. I present her because we're very empowering sort of parents. We believe in empowering our children with choices. And here's the choice. You either go to school happy or you go to school sad. But either way, you're going to school. Right? I think many parents in the room relate to this method of open parenting, of where we believe in the choice. And the child will go to school either way. Because I, the Lord of the home, have decided that such is the will and the way this world, this small microcosm will operate. And so she does go to school. And on Mondays she goes to school in a bad mood, and on Tuesdays she goes to school in a happy mood. That's how it is. From time to time she doesn't actually go to school. You might want to remove that from this. We don't need the school knowing that we actually permit it. Those sick notes aren't real. And that's because we've decided that that's okay for her to sometimes not go. That's it. That's not a parenting tip. That's just what we're doing with that daughter. So what's the choice? Either way she's going to school. The question is, how's she going to school? And that's how we all live our life. We all live life going to school. However, some of us go to school happy, and some of us go to school sad. Some of us take the train, and some of us take the bus. But either way, we're getting there. The world is going to go wherever the world is meant to go on a macro level. It's going to go there whether we like it or not. which is what gives us the ability to live life without the anxiety of a nuclear holocaust destroying the universe. Because that's not going to happen. But no one's saying we're not going to come awfully close. That's going to be up to humanity whether or not we try to push that boundary. So I'm not saying that there could be a massive, massive tragedy. Not a nuclear holocaust that destroys the whole world, but a massive tragedy. I can't rule that out. I also can't rule out that the world could actually all end up in a state of world peace because of humanity. Can't rule that out either. Either option is very much available to humanity. And who will decide whether or not we do that? Us. If Hashem wants the whole population of the world to die, don't worry, he'll send a flood. He's good at that. He's got a whole chest of cool tricks for hurting people. He's done it many times. He's got a whole chest of making the world live happily ever after as well. The question is whether we're going to force the hand or we're going to allow the hand. Are we going to force it, or is it going to happen in a different natural way? And that's the choice we make every day. And that's what we're going to explore next week when we look at this idea of free choice. But tonight we need to understand more about where is the direction of the world. It's going in a positive direction. You don't see it? That's fine. Wait till tomorrow. Because Joseph, when he was sitting in the pit, couldn't see what was going to happen. And again, when he was sitting in the prison of Pharaoh, after being the CEO of a major corporation, the empire of Potiphar, a business empire of Potiphar that is, and he's back in prison, he again loses hope. So it's perfectly natural to lose hope. It's perfectly normal to have a day of where you feel nothing really matters, and I'm all alone in this world. However, it's wrong to feel that. It's perfectly normal, it's perfectly natural, and I'm dare saying only in this academic safety zone. I would never say this, of course, in any of your homes if you're having a bad day, but we're here to learn. It is wrong to feel that. Why would it be wrong? Because in the moment that you feel upset, alone, disconnected, you're not feeling upset, alone, and disconnected. You're voiding the very fact that this moment was meant to happen. It was meant to happen. It was written into the annals of history before history was even started. It was always meant to happen. Who gave me the permission to say such a thing? The very book that describes how we move from an infinite state of energy and bliss, blah, 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 into a space of allowed physical independence. It was always meant to happen, that this moment would exist, and that I would be sad in this moment. Sorry, not that I would be sad in this moment, because that's my choice. That this moment would happen to me. My response was not written into the annals of history. However, now that I've responded, anything that does to other people, that was always meant to happen to them. You see, you're kind of safe because no matter what you're doing the will of God. But on the other hand, you're not safe at all because you're denying God at the same time as practicing the will. The Talmud says, and Maimonides codifies this as a law, whoever gets angry, it's as if they've committed idol worship. One of the greatest no-nos in our tradition. What's so bad about getting angry? When we explored anger once upon a time, we realized that the problem with being angry is that in the moment of anger, you're actually going for a moment of rejection. What is anger? Anger is a moment in which you express yourself like so. I, true knower of all that is good, feel the absolute injustice of it all, that whatever has happened to me. And I, the great knower of all, reject this occurrence as being good and deny that this could actually be contributing to my life or the whole world. And I choose to reject any seichel, any logic that says that this is a good moment and that this has been informed by Hashem. I deny that. And that's why it usually comes out in some sort of four-letter word expletive and complete fit of rage and worshipping of self and inability to accept that perhaps this was meant to be. That's called Avodah Zarah. It's called idolatry because it's the very denial that this could possibly be a good moment. That this moment is a moment that's meant to happen. And that what I am experiencing right now is meant to happen to me right now, today, at this moment. That's called avodah zarah. You say, but it's perfectly natural to get angry. Go and watch that class or read the books about anger. You'll discover that anger is an option. It is not a definite outcome. It's not, 1 + 1 = 2. A person in a situation they don't like leads to anger. No. Person in a situation that they don't like leads to a plethora of different choices and emotional responses, of which we will usually choose the one that makes us feel the best, which makes us feel really secure, which is a moment of anger. It's not the only option. It's not the only option. I've met many people who've been in very terrible situations. They didn't respond with anger because they maybe had a little more context, or they didn't have more context, but they had greater belief. And the example I always give is when you're slapped across the face and it really hurts by a Down syndrome child. You're not angry because immediately you've got context. You're not angry. You're in pain, not denying the pain. You feel sore, I'm not denying that. You feel bad about that, yeah? But anger? No. What's the difference? Context. So the question is, do we want context in our life? Do we want the context and the realization that what is going on right now is because Hashem wants it to happen? And that's what Joseph was telling his brothers. Guys, I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to kill you because this had nothing to do with you. The naivety of youth made me think it was all you. It had nothing to do with you. I had a dream. And in that dream, I saw the stars bowing to the moon. I saw the stars and the sun and the moon, bowing to me. I had a dream that I saw sheets of wheat, of grain, stalks bowing to me. That was the dream. It was always going to happen that you were one day going to come and bow to me. I didn't know it was going to happen this way, but it was always going to happen. That was the prophecy. Now that I realize that it has happened, I realize it had nothing to do with you. You were just pawns in a much bigger thing. It happened this way, but it could have happened any way. Are you accountable? Are you guilty for what you've done? 100%. But don't think I'm going to get angry with you. And what do we see here is that the brothers are actually guilty of selling their brother into slavery. And they should be put through the ringer for being so cruel. But Joseph doesn't get angry because he doesn't care about them. And that he doesn't care that they did this to him because what happened was always meant to happen to him. So there's both the acceptance and the accountability. Do you see that? Do you see how the person who gets hurt was always meant to get hurt? But the person that hurt them was not meant to do that. Which means that if you commit a crime, yes, you may have delivered the will of God, but boy, it's going to cost you for fulfilling that will. Because God never instructed you. There is no human that has been instructed to inflict pain or damage on anyone else. If Hashem wants that to happen, He can make it happen His own way. And we should test God. We should make it really hard. We make it so easy. We, I'm saying not us, God forbid, I'm saying we as in humanity, make it so easy to do the bidding and the hard work that Hashem would prefer not to do. So, on a macro level, the world's heading in a direction. On a micro level, our lives are heading in a direction. Have you ever been in a moment? I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands as soon as you feel I'm talking to you. Have you ever been in a moment where something negative happened? A flight got delayed, your car, a tire in your car was flat, or you just got held up in shocking traffic. It ended up meaning that you missed out on something, but because of that, you happened to bump into someone on the street that you haven't seen for 20 years, or another opportunity presented itself, and it only happened because you arrived late to that other location. Has anything like that ever happened to you? Yeah? Put your hand up if you have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, no, nothing good has ever happened to me in a moment that went wrong. No, not me. Okay, so everyone knows what I'm talking about. So was that a fluke? Was that a fluke? Or was that a moment of recognition? You know what I'm about to say. You think I'm about to say that it's a moment of recognition? No, I'm not. I'm going to say something crazier. I'm going to say that that's what we have to look at every moment in life. Sometimes we're gifted with the moment with the ability to see in that moment just how divine and precise every moment is, and most of the time we don't. Most of the time, how many times have you been driving? This might appeal more to males in the room, although I have seen female drivers that can't drive, but males, you know that feeling of racing between red lights? It happens on Dandenong Road. If you're heading towards Chadston, if you get a red light, you'll get every red light to Chadston Shopping Mall. I don't know what the councils do in their spare time, but they make life really painful. If you get every green, by the way, you'll catch every green, provided there's no major break in the traffic. So you know that feeling of getting a red light and being at the front of the red light and taking off 60, 70k an hour only to get to the next red light? And then you take off, and by the time you get to the third red light, you are fuming, you are burning, like the injustice of it all. Or that feeling of racing ahead of the traffic only to be caught in another layer of traffic. And then what the hell is going on here? Has nobody got an accelerator in their car? And then you realize there is no broken down car on the road. It's just everyone's driving slowly. You know, you almost want to see a broken down car, maybe even a corpse on the road would help. Anything to bring a sense of realization that, yes, this slow traffic is worthy. Nothing. You know that feeling of like, what is going on here? This road. That's a moment which should actually be amazing. Now, there are two reasons why it should be amazing. One reason is more common, but it's not always, so I can't tell you always be happy about this. I've done this. I've taken the route to Chadston from my house and had only greens, and I've taken the route to Chadston where I get only reds, but I fly in between each red. And do you know what? I pretty much got there in the same amount of time. Just, I had less petrol in one of them. A lot less petrol. What is that? Most of the time in our life, this is the cliche part, this is not sourced in Kabbala. Most of the time in our life, it's probably all going to end up the same way. Okay, cliche done. That's just to make you feel good. Now for the Kabbala. Everything that happens in our life happens because that's what it's meant to be. And when you try to challenge the system, you realize you end up in the same place where you started. In Jewish mysticism, there is a fascinating teaching which I've put to the test many, many times. And I am willing to put you all to the test to do this. Money spent on a mitzvah does not come out of your bank account. Meaning, money spent directly on doing a mitzvah is not going to cause you or incur you a financial loss. Nobody ever became poor because they gave too much charity. Nobody. Nobody became poor because they gave too much charity. I challenge you to give $100 to charity every single month. $100. And at the end of the year, I want you to write a list of all the things you missed out on because you were short that $100. Try it. I'll go even further. Give $100 to charity every month. Buy matzahs before Pesach and etrog before Sukkot. If you're a man, buy yourself a pair of tefillin and pay it off. Try it. See what happens. See how short you are. I promise you, you will find some incredible results. You'll look at the bank balance, you say, no, I've got less money this month I'm spending. At the end of the year, you will not be able to see where that loss took, if there was a loss. Because you don't lose money if the money is not yours. The money we have is not ours. The money we have has been gifted to us to use in certain ways. It's not ours. The money has been gifted to us, entrusted to us, for us to do something with, And if we do what's right with it, why the system that gave us the money would rob us makes no sense. And therefore, the mystic said that the money spent on a mitzvah will not come out of the earnings that you're meant to have at your disposal for your own personal mezone, food, chaye, life, and bonai, children. The money that you need to have. So if you don't have a lot of money right now, trust me, you're not going to get more money because you didn't give charity. And the people who have lots of money, you're not going to lose money because you gave charity. Even though the mind says, or as we've explored, even though the Nefesh B'Ahamis says, rubbish, don't listen to that man, he's talking stupid stuff. Don't listen to him, it's going to cost you. And the same book that tells us about that tells us about how the financial system works. Because the world operates in a very precise way, that we're meant to have what we're meant to have when we have it, and we're not meant to have it when we're not meant to have it. If you do not have $1 million today, that does not mean you won't have $1 million tomorrow, but it does mean you don't need it right now. If you do have $1 million right now, it does not mean you're still going to have it tomorrow, but I'm telling you now, you need to have it in your life right now. So I'm neither pro a life of having a loss, nor am I pro a life of having nothing. I'm pro having the life that you have. And I'm pro accepting the life in this moment for what you have, because this moment was fabricated to have everything that you need in this moment. And anything that happens to you in this moment, realize, and here's where bitachon comes in, here's where the trust is, that Hashem is not only the whole universe, and therefore, what does that mean that Hashem is the whole universe? You keep saying that, Menachem. Let me put it to you in this way. Who here has a body? I just want to know who's still with me. Who has a body? Some of you haven't put your hands up. You're like, what's he asking? I don't want to be caught with my pants down here. I'm not putting my hand up. I don't have a body. Menachem, I don't have a body. What's your point? Who has a body? How many of you have ever felt hunger? Just point, where in your body did you feel hunger? Point in your body where you felt hunger, not where you think you're hungry. You feel hungry here. Who here has experienced anxiety? Where did you feel it? Okay. Who has ever stubbed their toe? Where did you feel it? Down there. Who here has ever felt sad? Where do you feel it? Who here has ever felt an earache? Where do you feel it? Now, when you feel those feelings, those sensations of pain, happiness, anxiety, nervousness, joy, euphoria, whatever it is, you feel it. You feel it inside. But you know, I love this. When doctors ask kids, and by the way, we're all kids to doctors, they think we're all a bunch of little children. They say, where are you feeling the pain? And you go, over here. And they go, and is it very deep in? Yeah, it's like 5 meters deep. I am half a meter wide. It's in here somewhere. How big is the area you want me to localize for you? Don't get upset with me. I'm just trying to help you. That's when you want to really don't talk to me like that. And they say, is it closer to the outside or closer to the inside? And we're talking millimeters here, centimeters at best. Or when they say, is it a 9 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10? It's a 5 out of 10. Is it a pain you've ever experienced? Yes. Just can you do something? I ask all the questions. But the one question I want to point out is when they say, where do you feel it? And you say, in here. And yet, even though it's over here, no one ever goes, how are you feeling? Oh, I'm great. My hand's busted. I'm in absolute agony just over here. But otherwise, we're great. When your hand is busted and you're in pain, you're in pain. You're fully debilitated. It's like when people say, no, what you need to do is just get over it. You ever heard that? When people experience loss? You need to move on. You need to move on. I love when people tell that to people who have lost a parent or something 2 days after. Don't worry. You'll move on. You need to move on. Or they're not in pain, which is meant to make you feel like you're not in pain. But or we can go through all the things that I've heard people say in the first week of mourning. And one of the things I hate most is when people actually believe in the power of distraction in a time when distraction is wrong. For example, there's no need to distract someone from experiencing grief, suffering, and loss a few days after their parent has died. Go through the process. 6 months later, let's revisit it. Maybe it's not appropriate to still be breaking down every 2 seconds. Maybe it is. Who am I to judge? Tonight I'm not judging. When we experience things, it completely takes over. Even if it's localized to a certain part of our body. Sometimes we can put up with it, sometimes we can't. So when you feel it inside, it's in you. When Hashem had a rotzon, had a desire for existence, where did Hashem feel it? Now Hashem is not a human being. Hashem is everything. So where was it? The only thing we can say is it was inside. It was inside. Within the essence, within the infinite, there was a sensation to allow. And where did existence begin to take place? Inside. So nothing is external. This whole room, this whole world, this whole universe exists within Hashem. Because the feeling of desire, of allowance, are all feelings that happen within, they're not external. Allowing does not, when I allow you, or when I give you permission, it has actually nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with my attitude to the situation. When a child says to a parent, will you allow me to climb on the roof? This is not about whether the child can or cannot climb on the roof. This is the child asking the parent, are you going to be able to cope with life or not while I'm on the roof? It has nothing to do with the child. It has everything to do with the response internally. Of course, that response will inform our decision about what's going to happen in the child's life. But really, allowing is something that takes place inside when we allow for a scenario or when we fight a situation. It's happening inside. So when Hashem allowed the world to exist, it was inside. It is inside, which means we are inside. We are a part of the infinite. Now, the difference between us and Hashem is that when we have a stomachache, we've got no clue what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It could be acid, it could be an ulcer, it could be someone has punched me, I don't know, it could be muscular, it could be cancer, God forbid, it could be anything. I don't know what's going on inside me. Now, is that like not crazy? You don't know what's going on inside you? What do you mean you don't know what's going on inside you? You're in control, you're not in control. The only thing you control is inside you. That's funny. Hashem is completely one with himself. Completely one with himself, and therefore has a complete awareness not only of everything, but of every single aspect of self. So every day that we are living, every moment that we are experiencing is not without Hashem's awareness. Because Hashem has allowed for this to exist, and if He allows it to exist, it is a part of Him. If it is a part of Him, it must go in the direction of where Hashem is going, of where Hashem wants to be, and where infinite goes is good. Because the infinite is good, and therefore the result must be good. It's not good today. There's tomorrow. And today is a stepping stone to tomorrow, and today is a result of yesterday. And Joseph had to sit in the pit, and he had to sit in prison, and he had to become the royal vizier, and he had to become the head of Potiphar's company. He had to do that. The Jews had to be enslaved in Egypt, but nobody said it was actually the role of the Egyptians to enslave the Jews, which is why Joseph gets punished in the prison of Pharaoh. Because in that moment, he put his faith in a human being instead of saying, I am in this moment, I don't know why. Hashem, I hope you will relieve me of this pain. Now, if Joseph was a normal human being, he wouldn't have been punished for putting his faith in another human being. It's because Joseph was such a mystical bloke, he was punished for losing his ability to hold himself at that level. That's why he was punished. A normal person, we always ask each other of favors. That's how the world works, and that's okay. But the lesson for us is the realization that when I ask you or you or you or you a favor, I'm not asking you for a favor. I'm appealing to the inner essence of who you are to help my inner essence. That's what's going on. So emunah and betochen on a personal level is what we've explored tonight. Faith that everything is a part of the whole, and trust that the whole, not part of the whole as in we are the sum of everything. We are a part of the infinite, and the trust that the infinite is guiding every single moment and not allowing anything to happen in isolation. And that's why sometimes, this is why I used to read a lot of history. I love history. The reason why I don't read a lot of history now is because I just don't have enough time to read a lot of history, so I only read a little bit of history. But when you look at history, you can see how so many random things come together to form incredible outcomes. If you actually mapped the world and studied it, you'd see how it actually all intersects quite beautifully. You can actually see how tragedies lead to the most incredible positive things, and you can see how the most isolated incidents all have impact on one another. There is both a chaos and an order that's going on in the world, and not at the same time, just on different levels. If you look at the world right now, you'll see chaos. If you take a step back, you'll see, it's precision. If you take a step back, you go, it's chaotic. You go a step back, there's precision. Look at New York traffic, you go, chaos. Stand on fly in a helicopter and watch it, you'll see precision. Everything moves perfectly. There's someone who has programmed every single one of those traffic lights with precision. It's incredible. The person in the car goes, oh, why is it a red light? Why is it a red light? Because 4.5 million other cars are moving with absolute precision. That's why. You've chosen to not accept the bird's eye view of Manhattan. And we in our lives have to struggle with ourselves to constantly bring ourselves to a point of the bird's eye view. And if we can't do that because we don't have a helicopter available, then we have the one thing that we must be doing every single day: believing in the bird's eye view. Now this is a very, very cool concept, and I'm going to finish with this point. Because what this means is, on the one hand, I need to accept my reality. On the other hand, I don't need to condemn myself to the reality. What does that mean? You know when people say, if only I would have? I spoke about this last night in our Aging Parent lecture. You know when people say, if only I would have da-da-da-da-da. Have you ever said that? Have you ever thought it? Have you ever thought, if only I didn't marry this person, if only I didn't do this, if only I married that person, if only I invested in this, if only I didn't do this, if only I stayed home, if only I went to work, if only I did, if only. And then you go down this journey of entertaining what could have been. Realize every amount of energy spent on an if only is not only energy not well used, it is not only energy wasted, it is bad energy. Bad energy. Because every moment that you think about if only, you are not only escaping the current moment, but you are making predictions that you have no evidence at all to substantiate. When a person says, if only I would have, I don't know, not eaten that food, I wouldn't be sick now. Rubbish! Rubbish! Who said? It might be highly probable. If only I would have invested in CompuShare when I was doing, and this I'm for real, I tracked CompuShare when I was in year 9 and in year 10. I still have my charts. I watched it move from $21 to $27 and today, and I've watched it hit over $50. I watched it. And if only I would have put all my bar mitzvah savings into CompuShare, you think I'd be teaching and no, I'd be teaching for free. I think I am. I didn't invest in CompuShare, by the way. Rubbish. If only I would have. Who said I wouldn't have sold the next day? Who said CompuShare would have done what it did? CompuShare did what it did, but if only everything else was different, if only all the variables were exactly the same and I just did one thing, never happens. If only I wouldn't have banged on that table. I wouldn't have hurt my hand. Yes, but the bang on the table also sent a shockwave through all of you. You can't just take one thing back and keep everything else in isolation. So every moment we spend on an if only is not only stupid, it's wasteful and dangerous because you're creating a reality that actually is not a reality even in an alternative universe. So that's number one. I hope I've just removed half your imagination world. Let me now remove the other half of your imagination world. So what do we do with the past? We learn from the past. If it happened, it was meant to happen. But that doesn't mean it has to continue to happen. In this moment, I need to analyze my past for the lessons that can be learnt and nothing else. Do you know that your history is worthless except for its lessons? Of what good is it? It's gone. It's gone. You can't get anything back. You can't change it. It's just, it's not even gone. It doesn't exist. An hour ago doesn't exist. The car, it doesn't exist. Not the way it was an hour ago. Nothing exists from now. It's nothing. Well, you're going to invest in nothing? You're going to invest in lamenting and worrying? It's nothing. And I don't mean to sound cold and insensitive. I'm talking Kabbala here. It's nothing. Right now is all there is. What I do have are the lessons. And those lessons will inform how I'm going to respond in this moment, because I can only act right now. I can't act in the future. And I put my belief that the future will be as best as it can be based on the decisions that I make right now. I can't even imagine what the future is going to be like. I can only hope. I can try to do now what I'm hoping my goal, I will reach my goal. I imagine a better end. So I have my sets of goals, but I don't get lost in the imagination. Have you ever got lost? you have a good idea, and then you really start developing the idea to the point that you've already made the money, or you've already had the family, or you've already done it. You haven't. Once you immerse yourself too far into that future, beyond where you'd like to go, and you start wasting time and energy in imagining it and imagining it, you spend your whole life imagining the future, not working in the now to get to the future. You have to find a very, very soft balance between knowing where I want to go, but being here and responding. And emunah is that what happened, happened, and what will happen, and I'm a part of the greater good, and I'm a part of the greater being, and I have trust that everything that happened is ultimately to lead me to a better place, and I trust, I have all the resources that I need right now in order to get me through right now and get me to where I want to go. And if it doesn't play out the way I want it to happen, you know what? I'm still besimcha, I'm still happy, because I know that that's what's meant to be. So don't get too hung up if it doesn't play out the way it did, because you think Joseph wanted to sit in a pit. You think any of you want to be in the dark times of your life? And yet look in your life at how many dark times or how many negatives actually still contributed, not led, contributed to a positive. And if you can't work out how, I'm willing to sit with you privately and discuss it. And I don't need to know the gory details, because it's about reframing how we look at it. So where do we live? Now. And what do we have? Everything that we need. And what do we do with it? That's our choice. And if we do, and how will I know it was good? Because no matter what I do, it will lead to the result that is required. I am a pawn, I am a puppet, I am a player on a big stage. Next week we'll discover how that does or does not impact free choice, because it sounds like maybe we don't, but I don't want to plant any questions in your head if you don't have any, because that's not the goal of tonight. I want you to realize how good now is. I think we need to do a meditation on that. And then we'll take some questions. So I'm going to ask you to just get comfy in your seat. So get comfortable in your seat. And I want you to just have your feet flat on the ground, your hands in your lap, and I want you to take a few strong, deep breaths, in through the nose and out through the mouth if you can, but ultimately in the most comfortable manner. I just want you to listen to any sounds that fill the space. And as you listen to the sounds that fill the space, all of them are welcome. Some are on your right, some on your left, some are in front and some are behind. I want you to remain forever present with your breathing in the background. So you're listening to all the sounds and you're sensing the breathing as you breathe in and as you breathe out. I want you to become aware of your being here in this moment. You're breathing and you're sitting. Your mind may have slowed down, or perhaps it's still active. But your reality in the present moment is that you're sitting and breathing. in this space. Take note that everything that has happened in your life until this point is not happening. And the only thing that is happening right now is you are breathing, you are listening to the sounds that surround you, and you are sitting in your chair. Just be here, listening to the sounds. Take note that whatever the future holds does not exist, and remains in potential. And there are any number of possible outcomes of what the future will be like. And the only thing that is real is that you are sitting, listening to the sounds, breathing, right here. Whatever you have right now is all that you need. And whatever you need in this moment, you have. All that you need and all that you have is defined by the true knower, the one that knows itself. The infinite consciousness that knows all that is within and will always give and always withhold in perfect balance and moderation, so that a perfect result ensues. Be here, listening to the sounds and breathing, and accept the present moment as the only reality. All that is. You may notice that in the last few minutes you have neither judged or assessed the present. You have learnt to accept and be present. Come back to your breathing. The sounds that surround you. Feel the point of contact between your chair and yourself. Prepare yourself to come back and open your eyes in a moment. But realize that the ability to experience the moment remains with you. And all that is gone is the moment that was. When you feel ready, take a final deep breath. You may open your eyes.